going. I know I only have half an hour with you, and I'm excited to spend the time chatting. Okay, Felicia, I guess I should spend the first few minutes trying to convince you that this is a good call to take. So let me start by can I just tell you for a second what we do on my team at Google? I'm assuming that you've heard of Google but may not have heard of Jigsaw.
Right.
Okay, great. So my group was started several years ago to look at what technology we can build to address geopolitical problems. So it's like the first time that like one of the big tech platforms has tried to actually like specifically look at like what does ISIS do? What does, like countries like Iran that don't allow their population to have access to information? Like how can we think about states and non-state actors and the way they weaponize the internet and try to protect people? So as you know, the internet, like famously the internet, when the internet was designed, they didn't even fathom that they would need passwords. Why would you need passwords? People are just sharing information. So it's like we've got really like vulnerable, fragile infrastructure, and it's being exploited, and we didn't have the foresight to stop it. And now we have to like pay attention to it. So that's cool. It's a really cool mission. What's actually particularly cool about it is that we're not confined to Google's platforms, which makes sense because ISIS or the Kremlin or whoever you're worried about, they don't have any brand loyalty to just Apple products or just, so like if they're going to use everything they can on the internet, then if we want to understand the threat, we have to look at the whole internet too. And we also make an effort to look at what's happening offline, because it's all it's basically not that much distinction between online and offline now. Like in order to like understand what was happening with the threat of ISIS, we went, for example, to Iraq and actually met with defectors from ISIS and asked them about how they use technology. And we're really trying to like engage seriously with like people who are affected by these problems to see if we can address them. So now we're based in New York. We don't make money. We have no like financial goals or incentives. I think the business side of it is like, if all of these like fake news and ISIS, if they take over the internet, that's bad for business in the long run. So that's the basic business rationale. Felicia, this is Andrew.
Hi, sorry I'm late. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm just giving you a little bit of an introduction to Jigsaw. So right now we're about 60 people. We're based in New York, mostly technical people. So our output isn't kind of research papers or events or anything like that. It's really technology. So we have products now that we have a lot that try to help people who are living in censored environments access a free, open internet. We also look at online harassment. We look at radicalization. We look at disinformation. So that's a bit about us. Kind of unusual for a tech company to have a group that has quite this mission. And the most important thing for us is whenever we're trying to tackle a new area is find the people who are on the front lines, who are affected or doing the work, and see what they think about what would be useful to build. Because the worst thing we could do is just be in a windowless office coding and produce something that's not useful, right. Or maybe even that backfires. And we heard about you and were really blown away by the work that you're doing. Also because so much of what's happening in the fact checking field is left people with a slightly left bias. Even if they don't recognize that they have a slightly left bias. So this is really awesome. We've been talking to a few media outlets on the right, including Weekly Standard, who we've had a lot of conversations with, who do really good fact-checking work. And so we're really just interested in seeing how, in general, what technology we can help with, whether it's on Google platforms or not, that can help people understand when they're being presented with something that's fake, especially when there's a coordinated campaign. I'll tell you a bit more about that afterwards, but okay, over to you.
Questions for me. I mean, I'm really interested in, first of all, how you found what I'm doing. My work has only been really focused on this since November in a full-time way. I mean, this is sort of a hobby subject that I've written about or thought about or talked about, spoken about, but not to the degree where every day creating content and attempting to help educate people about misinformation on the internet. So I'm just curious how you stumbled across me.
We did. Actually, neither of us are like power Facebook users. Andrew, I just realized, doesn't have Facebook.
I don't even have a Facebook.
And mine's like not very active. So we read, I think, was it in BuzzFeed? We read an interview with you. It was pretty much like a feature about you in BuzzFeed, and then you've done. I feel like that there's been like journalist interest in you, and they've been writing about you and what you're doing.
Got it. Right, yeah.
That must feel like. Yeah, that must be interesting to view.
It's the second time around for me. You should know, I started the Tea Party in Houston in 2009. I've done the media circus before over, the becoming a novelty to the media for a while. So I get that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And are you still involved?
In Tea Party? Not necessarily. I've been involved in Republican politics 20 years. And sort of stepped out of that a little bit to organize the Tea Party and train people how to become active, and that was our focus. It wasn't necessarily our particular group trying to get certain people elected as much as invade the party structures and inform it with our views. And so when it became about endorsements and things like that, I had different views, and so we're not active now in as a chapter, quote unquote, as it were. But I've been still active in highly conservative politics for, again, 20 years. So been around that boat for a while.
Well, yeah. Although it feels like we're in uncharted waters a bit with I guess the internet and how that's allowing everyone to have a voice, and some people who shouldn't have a voice have a disproportionate voice. So what would be really amazing to hear from you, I guess, is any how the platforms themselves are playing into the problem. Like any suggestions you have, when you're why don't they just fix that feature?
Right. Okay, for example, the piece in BuzzFeed came about because two of us on my team found one suspect bot-looking profile, and one of my team members dug into that. That's sort of her specialty, and she identified 100 plus more that were related in some way, the weird patterns. And Facebook still hasn't corrected that. They still haven't taken down the ones that Craig from BuzzFeed did not report to them, even though they're easy to see that they're related.
And that was your point. Yeah, that was your point. If they know that, if they can, was this your point or what?
It was Craig's. He actually got a friend request suggested.
Right. Yeah. If you can suggest people, that's really powerful. I think that's a really good point. So I'm just going to take some notes, but basically build.
Certainly.
Build bad account detection.
Felicia,
on the basis of networks.
What made you notice these accounts to begin with? What was their behavior that kind of tipped you off?
The very first account that we talked about in that particular bundle was I look for patterns. That's how I distinguish things online. I'm very, comfortable in dealing with patterns. And I saw this post on this particular profile. Everything was one link, copied text from the article into the first, the share part ahead of the link. And then all the comments that came from other accounts made no sense in context of the share. They were sort of dropped in and copied and completely nonsensical. I saved that profile to my team's working group just to show people, and Sarah took off with it from there and found all these other ones through the comments. They were commenting on each other's profiles, and they were friending each other. And so it was just for her a matter of linking the two processes, who's commenting and who's the friends of this account. And she did a spreadsheet on it, and it ballooned from there. I've been taking down fake profiles since February with after BuzzFeed with a 98% success rate. But before that, it was 78% or something like that.
So you mean that like since you got the higher profile, they're like looking at your flags?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what is it you think these accounts you're looking at are after? What's their motivation?
Oh, I'm certain there's a lot of driving these, trying to drive engagement to certain sites. There's also some trust building things that they do where they attempt to signal to real users that they're safe to interact with, I think. There's some, I think there's some agenda pushing in terms of trying to build more of a division among people that are on the line in those communities. And they're doing it in a way that sort of, I think, bypasses the problems that the IRA targeting sort of ad scandal was happening before. Now they're moving, and maybe they did this before, but now they're moving away from having to buy ads because, of course, Facebook has been taking them down. But they are able to spend a lot of time in those groups seeding this information, seeding these links, seeding some fake news, some fakery, or some engagement bait, just to poke buttons. I think there's a profit angle, either politically or financially, or maybe a combination of those. I can't imagine why someone in Pristina would like to weigh in on the American flag versus the, say, Confederate flag. And that's a thing that I find when I'm looking in these groups.
Yeah. It's interesting. We've been looking at the market for fake accounts, and it's kind of interesting, like what you can buy, like, and how the cost changes. You know, if it's like firm verified, if it has friends, if it's aged. You know, it sounds like a wine. Like, you know, if it's an aged wine, it's an aged account, you have to pay more. And the thing that like really, it's really an aside, but it really annoyed me to see that if it's a man, it's like something like 5 cents more per account than if it's a woman, which was really like, there's something really deep and misogynistic there, but that is an aside. It's very consistent with what you're seeing.
Absolutely. So,
Right.
Felicia, what's motivating you to continue to track this stuff? Are you kind of concerned about society and its impact on democracy? Are you concerned about the health of the online ecosystems like Facebook, the platforms? What's your biggest concern here?
Oh, that's hard to say because both that you mentioned are pretty important to me. Being someone active in party politics, it's been difficult to learn over the past, since I joined Facebook in 2009. It's been difficult to learn how the platforms that we're on shape the things that we think and the actions that we take. And it was a key to us in organizing Tea Party way back when, getting people involved and getting them quick information of how they could take action. And seeing now these profiteers come in and who are much more effective at propagandizing people or moving them toward a action or toward a particular point of view. I see that and I worry about that because I'm increasingly wondering who's pulling those strings, who's behind that. There's not that transparency that you do get in a lot of the political realm. Now, of course, there's still secret PACs and secret donors, and I can understand reasons for that, especially since some people's political contributions are being weaponized against them. So I get that, but in this realm, in the social media realm, there's far less transparency. And why would... I don't know. I am concerned about people being fed messages from other countries who have zero interest in the effect that it has if it's just a profiteer motive. And I get why they would do that. I mean, that's where you go, is where the money is, and all the clicks and the information and the traffic is here in the United States. But seeing people do things and not have to live with the consequences is something I've been concerned about in every realm. But here I'm able to see it in a real-time way, and it petrifies me. And I don't like seeing people that I know and that I thought were better news consumers or information consumers be exploited for someone else's gain, again, whether politically or financially. That's been a huge problem, and I don't want to see people that I align with, whether ideologically or just people in my family, fall for stuff that's not true, and then act upon that, and then dig into that perspective in which it's difficult for them to come out. I remember, Yasmin, when just watching a few minutes ago a video of you talking about dealing with ISIS and interviewing them in over where they had sought refuge, and I think it was Iran, and asking them those questions about whether they would have changed their mind with more information earlier, or how much earlier, something like that. I think it's similar to what I'm thinking about here. How can I teach people better skepticism, to analyze information better in a way that's actually targeting how they look at information, not from a think tank necessarily, not from the perspective of these people writing white papers that's it's esoteric and people can't relate and access that. I'm trying to be the amateur solution to a professional problem, and it's all I know how to do. It's all I know how to do. I've leveled up on some skills over the past few months that I never thought I would have. I've produced probably 75% of the content on my YouTube channel in the past few months. Just trying to show people visibly what I'm seeing. Yeah, here are these guys from Kosovo that are doing this, and here's how you can spot that too. I don't think there's been that creation of those tools. So in my primitive way, I'm doing that.
That's amazing and really inspiring. And hopefully we can learn from you and make sure that whatever effort the big tech company is putting into this is informed and not not too many blind spots.
Right.
So I was going to say that one of our trips that we made was to Macedonia, to Velez and Skopje, where they have these thousands of people, young people, creating fake news sites. And we wanted to see if we could figure out who was behind them, are they being funded, or what was going on, or maybe a political party. And it was we were really confident that it was commercially motivated stuff. And then we wanted to see, okay, never mind their motives, they're commercial and political. What are their means? How do they get free traffic that they then make money off of through ads? How do they, it's difficult to get traffic on your website. It's difficult. And just understanding some of their techniques, how they use Facebook groups and social groups that were active, large, into sharing things, and they drive traffic for free. And one of the things that stunned me was that I understood that 90% of the people who are in that business don't speak English. And they don't target Macedonians, they don't target locals, they target Americans because the ads are the most lucrative from American internet users. And you're but how do you do it if you don't speak English? And they had a system, they get other content from other sites, copy paste, then they just make really clickbaity headlines. And they get traffic that way. So they don't even know, they have Pope endorses Donald Trump. They don't even know if that's true. Chris Christie, Ted Cruz, they don't even know who that is. They're just getting stuff from, it's just a business for them. And I remember speaking to a guy who you may have heard of him. He was in a lot of the reporting about fake news around the election. His name was Justin Kohler. And he was somebody, he had National Report and something Gazette, Denver Gazette. Yeah.
Justin Kohler just followed my Unfakery page on Twitter. And I tweeted, that moment when Justin Kohler follows you. And he private messaged me and offered to help.
Aww, that is rad. That's so cool. It's also a small, because he was really part of the problem and now he wants to be part of the solution. But one of the things he said when I told him that I was going to go and speak to the Macedonians, he's like, those guys. And I was like, why are you being so dismissive? And he said, they're just copy pasting. Like what I did was like real writing, you know, like I was fake people, fake places, fake this. And I like didn't understand until I went and spoke to everyone how much, there are like different tiers, and even he has a bit of a superiority complex about the bad thing that he did that he says he's sorry for doing.
I may have been bad. I may have been bad, but I'm better at it than they are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. But anyway, so it's interesting that like there's definitely stuff that's foreign, coming from foreigners, and it shows in the typos. So like based from what you've seen, do you think that it's non-native English speakers that are, or do you think it's a mix? When you find stuff that looks fake to you, is it necessarily people outside of the country, or no, a mix?
I think that where I'm encountering it, I've just run into a rash of that, but I don't by any means think that those are the only actors involved here. I think there are quite a few stateside profiteers who have a better opportunity and a better chance at getting it right simply because they're better at English and understanding the population they're trying to reach. You can spot the typos all day long, but you just had Alex Kaplan over at Media Matters put a report out a couple of days ago about pages that were Standing Rock supporting pages that had been verified by Facebook that were scamming people. They were absolutely fake, and they had profited a bunch off of that.
Really?
Absolutely. This is just a couple of days ago he released that, and one of my friends had done some research on that with him. And her page, Exploiting the Niche, Sarah Thompson, Exploiting the Niche, she does research into how these guys do these small groups. They pick these interest groups of, say, horses or Native Americans or animal welfare, and they all pick these, and I don't know if all of them are foreign, but they pick these particular niches because it's easy to capture one with a bunch of tear-jerking, heart-wrenching videos or whatever, and get people to take action on those things. And they don't, and they make money from instant article income on Facebook too. And so that's another, Sarah pointed that out to me. I had no idea that was revenue, but I think they get 70% of the revenue from instant article sharing.
Wow, so like that's like something that, how does that work? Like somebody pays the page owner?
Right. It's Facebook publishes these instantly. It's supposed to make it easier on the phones, I guess. I'm not at all tech savvy, but it's supposed to make it load on the phones faster. And when you get instant articles available to you, Facebook will share revenue from that, from ads that appear there. 70-30 is what I think it is.
Right.
And so there was quite a lot of violations of their policy where Facebook hasn't taken down or disallowed instant articles from certain fraudulent organizations. That's yet another scandal that's out there. And I'm focused on Facebook simply because it's the largest platform and the one where I find I'm easiest and most at home, but also where I think a lot of the fakery is targeted because the audience tends to be older than, say, Instagram, Snapchat, any of the other places, Twitter. And it's got more room. There's more features for spreading the kind of messages that work well on fakery. Twitter, it's a little bit more difficult. You're just retweeting links. You've got only 240 characters or however many it is now. I don't even remember.
Yeah, Felicia, I was just going to ask you that. Do you have you spotted any fakery on other platforms at all? Particularly, actually, what would be most instructive for us if on any Google platforms like YouTube? Do you follow that at all?
No, I'm typically a content creator, but I don't go searching for fakery on there. Although I did have a video that got maybe a couple thousand views from taking down someone over a video on Trump Food Box hoax that she perpetrated. That's in my catalog, and it was a good video, but it was originally a Facebook video instead of a YouTube video. I noticed one and posted about one on Google Plus just the other day. Somebody in my Google Plus feed ended up with an article. It was a quote. They're all fake celebrity quotes, but it was a Denzel Washington fake celebrity quote. And number one thing I do when I see a celebrity quote is try to capture that quick and put a fake. I make a GIF of it with a fake stamp flashing, and so. There's no way to share that and give traffic to the original source. It just, you share it and it's absolutely showing you that it's fake.
Right. So when you see either like, because you've looked beyond Facebook or because on Facebook people link to other whatever websites, is there anything like recurring that you notice, like particular Twitter handles or particular like websites that you think like they're definitely part of the problem?
I don't know. I'm tending to think that just taking websites, for instance, website addresses are less and less important in this because you're fed those links straight through a social platform anymore.
Right.
Nobody's going to sites directly by searching in a search engine and then going there. They're actually getting them fed from their social feeds. So I don't know how that affects that, but it's something interesting to think about, I think, how those links get displayed, shared, what can we do maybe to make them more prominently featured as to what the address actually is. When you are on Google Plus, you can see if reason.com is being shared. It's pretty clear down there. It's reason.com. Reason is the place, the source for the original source. It's not as clear on some of the other platforms.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. And one more question from us, then I know we've just got 2 minutes, but are there particular websites that you think, news sites that you think do a good job fact-checking?
I hate to admit this, but I don't look at news sites at all.
Yeah.
And I'm hesitant to use fact checkers because the very response you get from a fact checker, if you serve a link to someone from there, is, well, you can't trust them, they're biased. So all my news comes through my Twitter feed, which is a 900 and some odd journalist outlook, or journalist list from journalists and news organizations. So I'm just getting it directly from those links.
Right.
Do you think there is an organization out there that either you or kind of the communities that you're most associated with would find credible if you're read a fact check from them?
As far as who does it now?
Or maybe who doesn't.
Well, my favorite is Lead Stories because I've gotten to know Martin over at Hoax Alert that he does there. It's leadstories.com. And they do some search engine and optimization, Trendalizer, things like that they're working on. So they can spot stuff as it's happening, and they're usually quick about getting on it. And I know him personally now, so I tend to trust him a little more. He's been at the International Journalism Conference in Italy. He goes to these things. He's based, I want to say, in... it's Western Europe, but what country? Gosh, Belgium? I don't know. Belgium, the Netherlands, somewhere in that region. But he's...
Yeah, Martin, but yeah, Belgium. Yeah, it says on their site. Right.
Yes, Martin is my number one. If I have to link to a fact checker and he's done it, he's my number one choice.
Awesome. Wow, thanks, because we haven't seen him, so that's really cool. And do you happen to have seen Weekly Standards fact checks before?
Maybe once or twice.
Curious.
Is that a source that you consider credible?
Ish. I tend to be skeptical of everybody, though.
Sure.
I think it's just better to be that way, and I can follow up what a fact checker will come up with myself. I know a lot of people don't do that, but I feel as though if I do that, I'm giving the information my own stamp on it, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'll reference them, but I will say, my tools, the things that I try to do is build into people. I'm telling you this, but double check this. Here's where you can find out for yourself. Here's the original sources. Here's the places you can go. And people won't. But if they feel as though they've been given that information, I think psychologically that makes a difference, whether they ever pursue that or not.
What do you just broadly, what do you think about fact checks as a tool in general? Is that useful?
I think it's good to have them available to people. Some things we'll never be able to fact check. No one is going to sit through a 300-page report, issued by some government entity. So it's nice that there are some people who are paid to do that and can put that content together. But I mean, and that is a limitation of fact checking, is you're going to have somebody who's willing to or paid to spend the time to go through those things. But as far as that goes, that does help. Having that somebody has gone through, looked at the research, been able to publish it in a meaningful way that folks like me can understand and access. So I wouldn't say they're useless. I'd just say that I prefer to sidestep the problem of accusations of bias whenever possible.
Right. Got it. Cool.
I like that a lot. That's awesome. So thanks. We have to jump, but this is such a helpful conversation. And we're, like I said, our goal is to produce technology that's going to be helpful.
Yes.
Like fully recognizing both like the problem, the harmful role that technology is playing at the moment, and also that we can't build something useful unless we understand like the bigger picture of what's going on. So conversations with people like you are so valuable, and like thank you for making time to jump on with us. If like it's okay with you, can we like circle back with you like as our thinking evolves, and just like maybe bounce ideas off of you, and you're not gonna I think you're gonna tell it how it is. So if we come up with an idea that's not going to be useful, it's really valuable to hear that from credible people.
Anything I can do. I'm very excited to be able to be of some use. If there's something that helps make this problem a little bit easier to navigate, I'm there. Whatever I can do.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Chopping out. Bye. Bye.